semester saying like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then like the semester's over.
Yeah.
And like I did it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I'm doing it. Like it's when I started back, I was like, I can't fucking do this.
Totally.
And then like I had an associate's degree and I was like, okay, well now, and then it was time to go from community college to back to a university. I was like, I can't do it. And now I'm a senior. So it's like,
you know what though? I feel like that's really good advice in general for like life. Like that may be how you feel. Like my sponsor right now, it's so fucking cool. She's doing her practicum to get her PhD. So she was a sex worker, stripper her whole life until she was 38. Didn't get sober till she was 38. Had no skills at all. And is now getting her PhD and went to Paris and did her thesis on sex workers and like something and like the culture in France versus here, went to Paris on a scholarship, like, and was raised.
How old is she now? So how long did it take?
She is now 47.
Wow, that's so okay.
Isn't
that's
that
awesome.
Cool? I know. And like none of the same advantages you and I had. Okay. No, like parents are paying attention. Let's get them in school. None of that shit. No one went to college. Her dad overdosed on meth at like a bus stop. You know what I mean? She hadn't seen him in years. Like just no advantages at all. And has completely made her way in the world. And is one of the most brilliant people I've ever known. Went to prison, took a charge for a Hell's Angel when she was 19 years old.
What the hell?
Yeah, dude, because that's what they're supposed to do, right? The girls are supposed to do that. So
she was an old girl?
Yes.
Is that what they're called?
An old lady. Yeah, so she's 19 and there's this federal raid at her boyfriend's house and there's like pounds of meth there. And everything they walked out, she was like, that's mine, threw a little hand up and did Fed time, had her daughter in jail the second time. I mean, she's got a wild story, but now she has 11 years clean and is getting her PhD. Isn't that cool?
It is cool. People, whenever I tell my story, people are like, oh my God, that's so crazy. And I'm like, I've heard things that make my story sound like a kindergarten day. Like,
yeah. I mean,
not to denigrate it, but I'm just saying it's always just like people go through some crazy stuff.
Yes. And people heal from some crazy stuff. Yeah, totally. You know,
I will say going back to college after being in the workforce and as an adult rules. Like,
really? It's better?
So yes.
Okay.
Here's why. Parts of it rule. Like it's fun. It's like I never really got the college experience because I was just fucked up. So it's kind of, fun to just be in that world. And then like every kid there, their whole focus is like, I just want to graduate and get a job. And I'm like, hey, I had a job. It sucks, dude. Like stay in school. Yeah, totally. Bro. Like be careful.
Are you going to LSU? Where are you going to school?
UL.
Okay. But that's a big
University
state school, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there like fraternities and shit there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like the full real deal college experience.
Yes. We're the Raging Cajuns is our mascot.
Do y'all have a football team?
Yeah.
Is it like D2 or something?
It's D2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Still, that's Louisiana. They probably ain't bad. They can't be bad. It's Louisiana.
Terry Bradshaw came from here.
Okay.
He was a quarterback.
The Florida State guy, right? Or didn't he coach?
Yep. And Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. I don't know. He was
also I don't know who.
For UL.
I can meet you at college football. I don't know much about Duck Dynasty. Terry Bradshaw ended up being an announcer and the coach somewhere, right? Not Florida State. He was the coach somewhere. Okay. Well, cool. I'm glad you're getting to do it again. I think where we left you, Dave texted me and he was like, Jed part 3 in all caps. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what happened, man. We just been talking like a lot. So I don't even totally remember exactly where we left. Well, so you had just pulled up to rehab and you found out that your partner had a miscarriage. But and you stayed and you chose to stay. So where I really want to focus tonight, though, is when you started Church and Other Drugs, the first episode that I heard, because it was on Dopey, right? Your first episode was like with them. That was in 2016. So at that time, how much sobriety did you have?
3 years at that time. No, 16, 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that is the period of sobriety that, like, at least outwardly appeared to be like, Jed finally's got it. And that's like through 2020, right? Where, okay. And then the Kratom starts to like creep up kind of behind the scenes. That period of time, what does your last use look like that gets you into that sobriety? So it's 2014 that you got sober that time?
Yeah.
Okay. What does that look like?
That was the meth demon experience.
Oh, it was.
Ripping off my
okay.
friend.
That was
so
the
that
end.
was the
so
2014.
That is when you go to the rehab right then.
End.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
And oh wait, where do you want me to go?
So when you get out, how long are you in treatment that time?
That time I was in treatment for 120. It was maybe 2 months of primary and then sort of a 3/4 situation. And then I moved into an Oxford house. Hilariously, they had organized for me to go to this like kind of like strict house managed sober living house. I get there that night and dude, the head of the house already didn't like me because so when you're in treatment, they make you go to fucking 3 meetings a day. And he said that he had been seeing me at meetings on my phone. So like, he didn't know if I was serious. And I was like, dude. So number one, I was like, okay, bro. And I get there and he just gives me he goes, so he's smoking a cigarette. It's like, so what are you willing to do to stay sober? And I was just like, God damn, dude. Like, okay.
That's so annoying.
Like, so annoying. And I don't remember what I said. And then he was like, I know you got a girlfriend. Is that going to be an issue? And after a few minutes, I was like, bro, like, this ain't going to work. And he was like, no, I don't think it is. And I was like, yeah, let me get a fucking refund, dude. And he was like, you got it.
So you didn't say?
No,
oh,
dude.
Shit.
And so,
okay.
So this was kind of a big moment too, where, so I had to call my mom and be like, I know how this sounds, but like, we didn't jive. I'm going to go live they couched me because they didn't have room. It was my first friend I met, Adam. He was like, yeah, you can stay on our couch at Oxford for like $45. And I was like, that's what I'm going to go do. And my mom was like, well, like, I don't necessarily believe you, but like, it's on you anyway. And so that was kind of like the first time I like took ownership and charge and was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I need to do it. It turned out to be the best thing possible. And then also fast forward however many years to now, I work with his mom now.
The guy that you got in an argument with? Yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you seen him before? Funny. Have you seen him ever?
Oh yeah.
Does he remember that?
Dude, every time I would pick up my chip, I would for sure give him a look, like,
Does he remember that moment?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, because the house manager that like really oversteps is such an archetype stereotype. Yes, like that's a character in the world. Like fucking the guy that was my house manager that changed my life. And he really actually did. His name's Steve. And I learned so much from him. And I was at this like busted ass sober living where he was kind of trying to do the one where they yell at you, behavioral modification, but he had no qualifications to be doing this. So like he
so
would
just yelling.
Yes. And like somebody would have to sit in the middle of the room and the people from the sober living with no bounds could just be like, fuck you, you suck. I always knew it.
Yeah, like a hot seat.
Yeah, the hot seat. But like no one in that room had any education or qualifications to be holding this. He certainly didn't. Like I remember one time he was like screaming at someone, asking if they believed in God. But this was a 12-step center. This was not a religious treatment center. And I was like, I don't think this is appropriate, like at all. Of course I can't say that. And I was dating someone and we were actually going to HA meetings in Encinitas. And I end up staying sober till now, right? It's been almost 10 years. And like the guy was like super serious about his program too. And I've been dating him for a while, like 6 or 7 months. And also sex work is not in my story. That's not something that I did. I robbed like Home Depots and dumb shit like that. So one of the times my boyfriend dropped me off after a meeting, Steve walked up to me and he was like, I need to talk to you. Like really serious. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And he was like, I'm just worried one of these times you're going to, he was like, you're going to crawl out of one of these men's back seats and you're never going to be the same.
Oh my God, dude.
He said that to me. And it was my boyfriend who I'd been seeing for a long time. And that wasn't my hustle anyways.
Man.
Yeah. I was like, even if I used, I would be robbing the Walmart For same shit you did. Printer cartridges were my thing, not DVDs.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, because they're small, right? And expensive.
Yeah.
And I would just go in the bathroom and pull out the sensor and walk out, bring it back in, you know? That was my thing.
Fishing reels, too. Fishing reels are really expensive.
I was told that one and never actually did it. I did the printer cartridges. And then for a little while at Home Depot, they didn't have the bells on if you tried to get like the diamond bit drill tips. Now, after only a few months, of me doing, because those were tiny, but they were obviously really expensive. But then like within a few months of me getting to the point where I was like homeless and robbing Home Depot, the next time I went in, an alarm went off when I got closer, because and I was like, of course.
It's like you ruin your own hustle by doing it too much.
Yeah, this year is like the year they cracked down on this, you know, it sucked. Mm-hmm. Dude, I don't know how anybody gets any hustles done now. Everything is so difficult. Cameras everywhere, sensors. Well, I don't think you can get shit anymore.
Well, you can, though. It's weird because there's also a lot of like, you're not allowed to like confront people or touch them. Target, though, dude, Target will let you steal for like 6 months until you reach a felony. Target, dude, like countries consult Target's security team.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Do not fuck with Target. People is what I'm telling you. Like there was this woman, they saw her stealing and they're like, oh, let's let it play out. And they let her steal for 6 months until she reached like grand larceny. And then they went to their house and arrested her.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. And you're right. There are those laws now where you can't chase someone, you can't grab them up to a certain amount of money, you know, blah, blah, blah. So was it a 12-step program that you were in that time? And were you doing 12-step when you lived in that sober living? Okay.
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
And this is an annoying question that you may not even know the answer to, but after all of your attempts, what was different this time? How old were you?
I was 27, and I personally attest to that brain formation finishing thing, your prefrontal at like 20. I do remember a switch at some point to where I was able to be like, maybe I shouldn't like do X, Y, and Z, or like I suddenly was able to somewhat keep some boundaries. I think that was part of it. Really, dude, I had just absolutely nuked every single bridge. And like one of the last ones, and I didn't finish the story, I don't think, but it was my friend that put up his house to get me out of jail that time. Like this dude was my best friend, and he was the only one really still messing with me and my girlfriend when we were just, you know, everyone knew what we were doing. And I was over at his house and I saw some checks and I grabbed them and I held on to that check forever because I was just like, I can't do that. And we had gotten to the point of dope desperation. I was like, let's just go fucking rob people at ATMs or it was like bad. And I was like, oh yeah, I got that check. And I remember I was like, okay. So I just forged a check and I went to the bank and the lady was like, 1 second. And I was like, fuck. And she went away. I saw her pick up the phone. She comes back and she just says, he said you need to come see him. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude. And then I saw a text on my phone that says my house. And I was like, fuck. And I went over there and he was like basically tearing up. And he was like, I wish, dude, it's so funny. He was like, I wish I had it in me to swing on you. He's like, but don't fucking come around anymore. And I was just like, God, dude. Yeah, that's of all the things, it was just like, it was just like, you are low, dude. Like that is low.
But you went over. I probably wouldn't have gone.
Oh yeah. No, man. Well, it was that, dude. It was.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I would have gone.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I was ready. I was like, no, it was that level of, I had to. And he was like, I would have given it to you. And I was just like, fuck, dude. I know. It was just like that. Things like that just made me, dude, it was just, I was done. And probation was still part of it. I didn't want to go back. I hadn't gotten to a point where really nobody was messing with me anymore. Nobody really cared anymore. It was just like, it wasn't funny anymore how many times I almost died. It wasn't cute. It wasn't like, I was just a shell. I didn't really think I was lucky enough to die. I thought I was just gonna have to go to prison, and then I was just fucking done. And then I kind of had that spiritual experience. I really think like when I broke my hand, that really was a turning point. And then, dude, I think also I didn't know if this was gonna work, and I was terrified for a long time. And I was like incredibly vigilant. Like I really just insulated myself. I don't want to say I lucked out, but the way it, that house that I ended up couching on, like I just got done working out with one of the guys that like we are best friends to this day. It turned out that was such a solid group that I needed. And then, I mean, I was doing everything, like a men's book study. We took a meeting to a detox on Wednesday nights. I mean, it was just.
You broke your hand. I don't remember if you told that story. I'm not sure that you did.
Yeah. My girlfriend dumped me while I was in treatment.
No, I don't know. I didn't know this part.
Okay.
I don't think the spiritual experiences that we talked about were the demon with the guy, the meth guy, and then in jail when they put you on the chow line. And then you got moved.
Oh, okay.
So we talked about those. As you're going, if it sounds familiar, I'll let you know. But I don't think I think we stopped right when you got there.
Yeah. So this was the last one, and they let me and my girlfriend in, and then they sent her to a girls' facility and let me stay at the men's. And she got out before me, and so I had just got my driver's license back because you're supposed to go look for a job, but I'm still in treatment. And she calls me one night and breaks up with me. Like while I'm there. And so I hang up the phone and I walk outside and I just punch a wall as hard as I can, immediately break my hand. And in a split second, I was like, fuck this. You got your driver's license. Get out of here. Go to the ER. Get some pain pills. And then I was given like a moment of clarity where it was like, oh shit, that's all it took. That's it for you to just throw all of it away again. And it really scared me. And instead of doing that, I just went in my room, and I think I really just had a third step experience of just like breaking down, like really duking it out with God, like, and that was kind of the turning point. I had a choice, to go try this all over again, or like, oh shit. That was when I was really like, I have a fucking problem. Yeah. I'm like, no, man.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe you did. Now I'm not sure if I heard it on Dopey or if I heard it on our show, but regardless, there it is again. So now you're in sober living and you're doing 12-step. What was your experience with like a sponsor and the steps? Did you start going through them? And what is your experience with the steps? Or what was it at that time?
Well, I realized I had never, I think I was a third stepper, maybe a fourth stepper. So I also, and it was so funny. There was like one thing that I had never, and it's sort of cliche, but there's one thing I had never told on a fourth step. I told one counselor. So my first sponsor I had out here, it was while I was in treatment. I told him and he was like, oh yeah, me too. And I was like, oh. And it was just, one of those like, oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's out of the way. It was to me, it was a huge take it to my grave, disgusting thing. And that sponsor actually ended up dying. That was, he was one of the first recovery fentanyl casualties around here. Then I got with my buddy Debesh, it was a lot of like these not coincidences, where my old counselor from St. Christopher's, this really great, the reason I moved to Louisiana, he was like, hey, I got an old client in Baton Rouge in Lafayette who's big in AA. His name's Debesh. Look him up. And so I found him, and he started sponsoring me. He's Indian. He was kind of a much not Christian thought. I'll just put it that way. And so there was a couple things like I had always used the paganism of the 12 steps to like convince my parents that I didn't need to go, because it's like, oh, look how God as we understood him. What is that crap? And once again, I finally looked at it and I was like, oh, this is just like plug and play, whatever faith you want. It is just a practical way to live that out. Like, oh, who'd have thought, like I had no idea. And I think, like what it's supposed to do, the 12 steps are just supposed to help you have a spiritual awakening and turn around and help other people to do the same thing. The biggest thing I think was that I sponsored others and I went to meetings. I don't know if any of my sponsees stayed sober. I don't think so. We always had a joke that like we're the only good sponsees. It's like I never seemed to get another person that was true. Like willing.
That's
you know what I'm saying,
true.
dude?
Yes.
Like what the hell, bro?
Although I am the only sponsee of my sponsors that has gone through all 12 steps. That's true. And she's been my sponsor for like 10 years, 11 years. Yeah. And I'm the only one. And she's been sponsoring the whole time. But you're right. That's kind of funny. Like I'm the only good sponsee. How is that possible?
Yeah. I don't know. I get a lot, and this happened 2 weeks ago, actually. I get a lot of calls, though, now from, 5-6 years ago that they're like, hey, this is, had another bump in the road, whatever. This is where I'm at now.
Okay.
So that's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So you're working steps, sponsoring others.
The helping others bit was probably the biggest difference, I guess I would say. It's so funny, though. Like, looking back, like, dude, I was insane at a year sober, thinking that I was freaking nuts. At least I was sober, but I was not.
Were you still in sober living at 1 year sober? Like, what did your actual blueprint?
See. We did Oxford for 9 months. Yeah, so I think so. Probably right at a year. And then the 5 of us got a house, like my bros in Oxford. We moved out, got our own place, and then we lived together until the Lafayette floods of 2016, and our house got flooded. I woke up on a Saturday morning, and they were banging on my door like, hey, dude, wake up. And I was like, fucking go away. It is Saturday morning. Go away. They're like, dude, the house is flooded. And I was like, no, it is not. And they're like, dude. And so I get out of my bed into water, and I'm like, oh, shit. And dude, we had, I had 2 ferrets, and we had cats and dogs, and like,
Did they live? Did they live?
Oh, yeah,
yes.
Okay, spoiler, they lived. Okay. But it was just it went from like, oh, this is cool, ankle deep. And then it was like coming up, and we're like, oh, shit. And so it was just a scene of me like with a cat and 2 ferrets just waist deep in water, like running out of my backyard. Like, oh, God, dude, it was nuts.
What were your ferrets' names?
Kylo and Ren.
Okay. My brother had a ferret named Kramer. And he's the only other person I know that owned a ferret until you right now. That's hilarious.
They were my sobriety babies, man. And the last one just passed this year. They were old. Dude.
You had them this whole time?
Yeah. It was really one of those. So we were waiting on Ruth, the baby, and like the ferret room, we couldn't really change it until the ferrets were gone. They were getting old, and so we're just kind of just waiting around. And it really was like, that was like the last part of kind of my old life. It was like a weird passing. It was, it sucked.
What's in a ferret room?
The ferrets.
Oh, okay. So there's no special like furniture.
Yeah. No.
Is there like ferret, like long beds and stuff? Like,
there's a bunch of hammocks.
Okay.
There's a bunch of hammocks and their playthings.
So it's like an actual ferret room.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So you move out. Are you going to school? Are you working? What are you doing when you move out?
So I moved in with the girlfriend at that point because we all had to find somewhere to live. No phones during the meeting, please.
I know. I can't believe I just did that. Just happened.
I'm just kidding, dude. That's my favorite thing to do. Moved in with a girlfriend. So I got a job working, splicing fiber optic internet for once again, like a God thing. Our buddy Kipper started working for the city, the internet. And because he was like sober and good, we created to this day, like a sobriety line of people that work there and like will recommend people. So I'm doing that. And then I have the goal to be a counselor. And so I start like a 1 week in a month. You have to get like 120 hours before you can get your CIT, counselor in training. So I was doing that. And then as soon as I got my CIT, I quit the fiber job and basically like halved my yearly salary to go be a CIT at a adolescent treatment center called New Beginnings.
When do you start the show in all of this? And what was the goal with the podcast? And you still do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been doing it for 8 years
7
now,
years.
or something like
that.
Yeah,
8 years.
Have you ever taken a break, or have you released an episode every single week? That's crazy.
No. I have given myself grace to where I think the longest was maybe 3 weeks.
Okay, that's still not very long to miss.
No, it's like almost like an OCD, or it's like I don't know what I would do without it.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Because I finally had to take breaks. Like, my goal was to not do it, right? I started in 2020 when my studio was closed. And when we reopened, I could not keep putting out episodes weekly plus managing my studio. And I was like going insane.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And then somebody finally was like, why don't you do seasons? And I was like, seasons? Yes, seasons. That's the answer. So I did seasons. Now I don't do that at all, though, right? The goal is to just completely put episodes out week after week after week after week. Because like it was doing really well in 2020 and it still does okay. Like it's continued to grow. Mm-hmm. But I look back sometimes and think like, I wonder what would have happened if I had never missed a week.
Oh, same.
But like if you only miss 3 weeks here and there, like that's not
much. There was like a point that there was definitely like a terminal velocity point where like if I would have completely pivoted my life to just do this, it probably could have. But it's like I had a lot going on, so the origins of it, it's me and my buddy John started it, and it was his house that I did cough medicine at the first time, where my hands melted in the grass. So, but he got sober years, maybe a decade before I did, and he had been trying to get me sober. So we are road dogs. Like that's my homie since middle school, and we were both Christians, but kind of whatever you want to call it. Like we're not, fundamentalist, and realizing that AA could learn a lot from church and church could learn a hell of a lot from AA, because AA meeting is essentially how a church is supposed to be, where you are coming in like, here's my broken stuff. Here's me saying I need help. This is someone else saying they need help. Hey, I can help. It's a great thing. So it was that we wanted to kind of start that conversation. And then like Dave said, like originally I wanted to just do all my crazy war stories that my friends had, because I've met so many bananas people. And I was telling my friend Jordan that, and he goes, oh, you mean like Dopey? And I was like, what do you mean? And he showed me Dopey, and I was like, son of a bitch.
That's exactly what happened to me. I told my friend Devra, I was like, I'm going to start a podcast and I had done like zero research. And I was like, where I talk about crazy stories from using, because I also have insane stories, and I want to do your show too. But like, I had turtles. Yes. I used to walk on leashes, like the craziest, we all think we've got the craziest stories, and we do, right? And like, same thing. I was like, well, I'm going to start a recovery podcast, and I did want it to be recovery though. So that's where it would be different. But I was like, I want to tell the crazy stories. And she said, oh, like Dopey. And I said, like, what? And she showed me, we got the exact same story. And I was like, oh man, this guy's already doing it. But I was way later than you. You were at least 2016 or whatever. Early. I was looking at 2020. I mean, he was already at 20 million downloads or something by then,
Yeah.
So that's how you started it. And then it continued to progress. Your friend, but John didn't continue to host it with you, right?
No, it's so fun. Well, because he's like a whole family. He's had kids and he owns his own business. So it was becoming like he was like missing interviews, and we started getting really short with each other. And like one night he was like, just fucking do it without we're arguing. And then basically he was like, hey man, if you want to, like, you can totally have it and keep going. And I was like, okay, thanks. And like no hard feelings whatsoever. And so then that's kind of when I just started doing like I have a group of rotating co-hosts, but no, I kept doing it even when shit was really bad. And I've always tried to be as honest as I can, which is usually pretty honest and probably sometimes a little too honest and I've kind of just been operating on this theory that like genuineness rarely has consequences, like negative consequences. I was worried about, if I'm going to be, or I am a professional and eventually in this age of searchability, it's like, what is going to happen but it has not been a downside yet. And it has been really, it's definitely changed my life, because I invite people on that I want to learn from, authors that I want to learn from, like spiritual people of all kinds, recovery people of all kinds. I've made lasting internet friendships, like that we legitimate relationships, and to this day we haven't met in person. Dave is a perfect example of that. I remember meeting one of my other rotating co-host, a guy named Ben, and the first time I saw him like in 3 dimensions, it like really tripped me out because I'd only seen him on Zoom for freaking 4 years.
Yeah,
I was like, weird, man. Like,
you should go to DopeyCon. Are you gonna go to DopeyCon?
I can't this year.
Okay,
I can't.
Have you gone before?
No. Okay. And so next year is the plan. Yeah, I want to like do something with him, but this year, this is the first year I got invited to like 2 podcast convention things that I got a little baby.
Yeah.
Can't this year.
Yeah.
So next year though, are you going to go?
Yes, I'm going to
That's
go.
right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. One of the like big influencers that he's interviewed before is a good friend of mine, and it's her birthday. And so she's doing like a influencer group thing that's going to go, which will be fun. Yeah, it's going to be super fun.
Yeah.
So you start the show, and then when do you get into Kratom again, right? Like everything is going really well, and then you get into Kratom again. What happens there? What happened? And when was that?
Yeah, it was the Adderall first, right? And it was when, which I think we talked a little bit about this too.
You talked about Adderall a little bit, but I don't think we got to this point in the story where like you started taking it again later in sobriety.
Oh, well, this is when my wife asked for a divorce. It was that day I went back to the gas station. And then that was when I got on Suboxone, got off. Oh yeah, got in the new relationship. Yeah. The miscarriage happened, rehab. So you mean past that?
Yeah. So like when you get sober in 2014, right? Like the period where you start doing well, you're living with the guys and then you're living with the girl. In there, when do you start doing Kratom again?
Yeah, that was when I got off all my antidepressants. I found out the wife was smoking weed, and I had gotten prescribed Adderall.
Okay.
And it was when I got off all of that, and then I just remembered about old Kratom.
Yeah. So when did you get married in that period of sobriety?
I think I was 2 years sober. So we got engaged at 1 year and married at 2 years.
Okay. And she's sober too, or was? You met in recovery.
Time. And that's where, like, in retrospect, it just kind of not realizing that we were going to grow into who we actually are as people, and thinking that at a year sober, that's who I am. And that, you know what I mean? And, really for her, I think she just kind of realized at some point that she did not want to do the recovery thing. And I'm sure she felt kind of trapped and scared. I can understand that. And my mistake was like letting that kind of crack my ideas of like recovery. And I mean, that's when like me and Chris from Dopey would kind of talk too. And I started like just shitting on AA and kind of just like, cause I was working, and you get really disillusioned working in treatment. And I absolutely stopped going to meetings because it was like, I'm not trying to go to work when I get off of work. And then I would see clients. It was just, I got full of some resentment and bitterness. And I think it was kind of one of those feelings of like, you have these goals, you're working for something, like it's like, okay, I'm getting married. That's a goal. Becoming a counselor, that's a goal. And it's like, you get there and then you realize that happiness is not somewhere, some destination, and you're going to be sorely disappointed if you think that if only I get this or do this, then I will be happy. Like, you're going to be disappointed. I'm still learning that lesson. That's really what I feel like I'm being taught lately, is that the journey is the destination sort of thing. And all we have is like this exact moment right now. And I can be very difficult to be around when I'm going through my mental health stuff, because it was a constant going on and off of medications. And then it was taking things that would like, I would be super good for 4 days. And then for 3 days, like with the Phenobute, it was, I would use it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would be in crazy withdrawals and a super asshole. And then Thursday, Friday, and it was that cycle. So it's like unpredictable.
What year was all this in the timeline?
This was 19? I guess it was 19.
And did people know, like, on your were you continuing to go to 12-step and take tokens? And because I heard an episode of in 2020, I was just listening to a few, and Dave says, "How much time do you have?" And you say 6 years.
That was the last one I picked up. No, it was not accurate.
And it was not. Okay, so you were going to meetings and taking time, and no one knew that this was happening behind the scenes.
Right. One person knew.
Okay. I actually think it's so brave to actually come clean about that stuff after you've taken time. Like my sometime co-host, Narcan Nate, he like called me one day and was like, I have to tell you something really bad. Like I've been using, and we did an episode about his 4 years. And he was like, I was lying during that episode. I'm so sorry. He thought I was going to like fire him from the show. And I was like, Nate, it's okay. I'm not mad. This is what addicts do. But like, it was so hard for him to say that. I can't imagine how hard it would be for you to say that. And people get so mad at you and judgmental, even though it's 12-step. People get so mad at you. You had to have been terrified to tell people.
Oh, well, I mean, even more, like, let me just paint this. So I am a counselor, I have to go to work every day and like run groups on like step one. And it's like, but I certainly related. This was like an interesting period where I really experienced like God working through people at their lowest in me, where it's like people would come in and talk about like struggling with Kratom, and I'm like, I fucking feel you, dog. Like, when you do this, this, and this, the guilt and shame was so heavy. I mean, I'm so amazed that I did not kill myself. It was just fear. I guess fear was the running theme. And it was, I had fought so long for this, and I had finally gotten it. Okay. What am I? My parents all the time, my mom was just always sending me, I can't tell you how happy we are that you finally did it. And, we're such an answer to prayer. And, I'm in this like sobriety power couple thing, and I have a reputation. And then put on top of that, I'm Mr. Recovery podcast guy, sober guy. And it's all these reputations that the story in my head is that if you get honest about this, it all goes away. And your career goes away, and I don't know what I thought would happen.
Probably all of that, because that's what I would think.
All of that.
Yes, that would be my fear too. Was there any part of you that felt like you could justify, I'm not shooting dope?
100%. I never did illegal drugs.
That's a recovered life. Like, did you walk that line? But like deep down, you knew you weren't
100%
living in some sort of truth.
I didn't say the R word until like 2021. I don't think. Yeah. I really didn't think it was that. And here's the thing.
By R word, guys, he means relapse.
Relapse.
I don't even want to say it for you.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. And here's the thing, and this is the thing, and I think this is important, and this is what I tell a lot of people. There is, all this stuff is such a fine razor's edge, but there is such a thing as like harm reduction, and you don't have to burn it all down. So like if I would have gone with the mindset of, well, you took some Kratom, you might as well smoke crack. That would have been terrible. I did not have that mindset. And I had people I think it was like 2 that knew, and they would remind me like, hey man, like you are, in the grand scheme of things, bro, like you're not burning it down. So like, and that's a good justification that, to just go full bore is like, well, you might as well.
Well, I'm really glad you had those people in your life, because without them, you probably would have done more,
Yeah, absolutely. If I didn't have that career, because I thought about, there was another turning point where it was like, okay, maybe even to save my marriage, I'm just gonna go swing a hammer and smoke weed and drink Bud Light. I've just fuck this. Like, okay, we'll both just do that. Maybe that's why we're not, compatible. Is like, if we just smoke some weed together. And God, I smoked her weed one time and weed does not agree with me. I just got couch locked and paranoid as the fuck and hated everything. I was like, what? I was like, you smoke this like 6 times a day? And dude, like, I can do drugs. And I still was like, this is terrible. So yeah, if I didn't have the structures, I guess, that I had put in place to keep me in some sort of bounds, oh yeah, it would have just been gone. Absolutely gone.
What finally makes you come clean, start telling people? Because right now you're not on anything right now, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So what makes you come clean?
The guilt and shame. Yeah. So my solution was to kill myself. And I that was during the pandemic, and I had gotten a pistol for other reasons. But until then, I hadn't had a gun for the longest time. And so now I finally had a pistol. And it was, man, I've still got it too. I keep it. It was just one night. It was finally, I was like, I cannot do this anymore. It was such a suffering in silence thing. And it's like so many things happen just that people do not know about the other thing too, I was playing drums in the worship band at my church. So it's like, talk about, like, I had all these things. And I remember, dude, if anybody would have seen this scene, so I had keys to the church so I could go practice whenever I wanted. And it was one night, 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I go up to the church and I'm just playing music. And I start like scream, like snotty, bawling, crying, screaming at God, like begging for this to stop, like begging to die. Just like, that's nuts. So that kind of stuff was going on that just nobody knew about, just kept all this just bottled in. And it was like, finally, it was like, this is enough. And I wrote a note and had a plan. And instead, the next morning when I went to work, my intake friend was like, "Hey, how's it going, buddy?" And I was like, yeah. And I just told everything.
This
kind of remember that?
Yeah, this bit you did say, but I don't think I realized where it was, like, in your life. You said to him, "I'm not good, man," right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I was like, I need help.
When you were like crying in the church and all that, was the root of that the shame of having had relapse, or was it the heartbreak of losing your wife, or was it both? Like,
the wife wasn't lost yet.
Oh yeah, that's right. Was just, okay, so it was about the relapsing.
It was crumbling. Yeah, it was about the relapsing.
Okay.
And it was like I've said, it was like I wasn't sober enough to get the benefits of recovery, and I wasn't high enough to get the benefits of drugs. So it was just like fucking terrible, dude. It was awful. Total misery, total hell that I just completely put myself in. And that it was also too, just could not believe that I did this again, with everything that I know and everything, it's like, I can't fucking believe that I got here and this is where I am, and not wanting to, just blind denial and doing everything I could to control the outcome. Like that was my whole, all my mental thoughts all my mental bandwidth was consumed by like, okay, if I need to do this, okay, like what time did you take those capsules? So I need this session in so I can take this capsules. And then like, okay, how can I'll fake COVID and I'll get 2 weeks off of work, or maybe I'll just say, how can I do this? How can I go to a detox? How can, just fucking. And so then, the only thing that quiets that down is getting, a little high to give me a Kratom. Little reprieve. Right. Yeah. And it was like, Kratom, Phenobute. And then I was going to the casinos and stuff too, and Adderall, and just a bad time.
Yeah. So he says, you say to him, "I'm not well." And then you went to treatment in Kentucky, right?
Yes. But I hadn't admitted I did not admit the Kratom though. I said everything, but it was, gambling and marriage is falling apart and that I wanted to kill myself.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because you went there and surprised them by having to kick right at the treatment center when you got there. Okay. So you actually kick while you're there though, right? Did you get on Suboxone at that time or you got off? Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I got off. I was good. And then 2 months after I got home, she asked for a divorce. And that's when I was like, well, all right then, fuck this.
And then how long does that last? That's little run?
Like 3 or 4 months, until I get on Suboxone.
And then you did Sublocade to get off the Suboxone. Okay. So where are you now? Like, what do you consider your sobriety date now? If you're doing time, if you're counting time, what would you consider your sobriety date?
I guess January 1st is what I'm kind of saying of this year.
Of this year? Okay. I think all that matters is what you feel comfortable with, because it's like, and the reason I ask about justifying is because like, I get that, right? You can justify it. You really can. And there are people that can help you do that. And there's a safety to that. But what matters is, are you living in alignment with what you think your spirit's like truth is? And that's where like therein lies the rub. That's where everything can go sideways if you don't feel that way.
Well, yeah. And I made it a year. So it would have been September of 22. Years get so confusing.
Okay.
And I guess I made it to where my fiance was 9 months pregnant and I had 11 months and like 23 days sober. And it was the day after my birthday. I to this day have no fucking idea why I did this. And I drove to a gas station and I bought a Kratom shot. And it was like, I remember holding it in my hand and just being like, this is not a good idea. 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 And then it was like, oh shit. And and then it's like, oh my God. Like, dude, I immediately texted my sponsor and he just goes, Jed, what the fuck? And I was like, I don't know. And so that was I was like, dude, I need to get on Vivitrol. Like, I need to go nuclear. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. And all these stories. I don't think you've told these stories on my show. I just heard these on. Okay. So this is crazy town. Your plan.
Yeah.
Ultimately it worked, but like, and I just want to say too, it did work. I just want to say too, though, like that concept of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I don't want to do this. And I'm doing this. And I'm doing this. That is the most like terrifying feeling of helplessness ever. It's scary because it's your own body. It's you betraying your deepest thoughts that you don't want to be doing it anymore. It's like the epitome of addiction and it's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got chills. That's probably the piece that people that don't have it will never, it's impossible.
It's impossible to understand.
Yeah. I don't know what it feels like to be pregnant and I never will. And you don't know what it's to not want to do something with every fiber of your being and you do it. Like, and dude, I was mad at God. I was like, how could you, what happened to there will come a time you'll be without mental defense. And that's when a spiritual solution, it's like, where was that? Like, why did this happen?
What do you think about that though now? Like,
I could have been
okay, but you know what though? I'm going to challenge this though. You did text your sponsor right afterwards.
Yeah.
Where is it? Ideally this happens on a linear timeline, I guess, in terms of sobriety next to each other, because that's the best way to mitigate the consequences. But really, you did text your sponsor immediately. You didn't have to do that. So there's also an argument to be made, I think, that you did have a connection and it didn't necessarily come through before, but it did right afterwards. And so again, if you're looking at like a linear timeline, the continuity of days, you know what I mean?
I do. And that's very true. And this is also like the parallel progression of the disease where it was this time I did not bounce back like spiritually, physically, emotionally, like I did in the past. And the obsession to use this time never really went away. I would say for the most part of that 11 months, I was white knuckling it. And it was like specifically craving like the Kratom shot or just like this opioid craving and just going into gas stations and seeing it and just be like, fuck. I just wanted to do it one more time. I was like, and then mad that I couldn't. Like, what the hell? Like, why can't I just do that one more time?
Were you doing steps and meetings and all the things during that time?
Nah, you know. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
meetings, no. Book study, yes. Steps, sort of. I did initially go through all 12 again, and then, no, that's a lie. Well, I did. No, that is a lie. I only made it to, I think, 8 and 9, and then we just kind of fell off a little bit. We had plans to. So, no, I wasn't doing everything I could have been doing. And it was, in hindsight, the terrifying stress of about to become a new dad, still
that's really scary. That
reeling from a
divorce.
Yeah. And I'm in school, there's a lot of stress, a lot of fears. So it does make more sense the more I think about it.
Let's tell the Vivitrol stories, because this is the gnarliest shit I have ever heard in my life.
It was, so I talked to my doctor, and he had never given it before. He's like, but I can order it. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I thought I was getting it in like 4 days. And so I was like, well, let's have a little fun, but might as well before I get the shot. And so I did Kratom the next couple days. And then the insurance, there was like some crazy insurance battle. And so the shot wasn't coming for like at least another 2 weeks. And I was like, oh shit. And then I just kept using. And so now the time of the shot is coming up again. And I hadn't told my partner about this. I was like, you have too much stress going on. I don't want to add to your stress. I need to just take care of this myself. That was the thinking.
I understand
Bad
that.
idea.
I understand.
Yeah,
that.
I do. But should have been honest in retrospect.
Agreed. But I also see why you thought that.
Yeah. So I got the pills of naltrexone and did a bunch of research. And so like the plan was to just take a little bit to get me ready for the shot, so the shot wouldn't be so gnarly. And I was dodging it. And my friend was like, dude, you need to take it. And so like one Saturday, I had used Kratom the night before, and it was a Saturday morning, and I was like, all right, fuck it. We're just going to do it. How bad can it be? And I might have taken a half. It might have even just been a quarter, to be honest,
First
of like a 50 milligram pill.
I have a question here though. How much Kratom were you doing every day at that time?
A couple shots. So a decent amount, maybe probably like 3 or 4 shots.
How many grams are in a shot?
I don't like 200. I don't know. Like, I think it's like the equivalent of like 8 to 12. I can't remember how it shakes out. So gram equivalency, probably like 20.
Okay. I guess I don't know how it's measured. I thought it was measured in grams.
Not the extracts.
But it's all lot. But like a lot, basically.
Yes, enough. Okay. Enough that I was enough. Okay. Yes, enough that I was already. And it's like, man, dude, the kindling effect is real. That like over time, you just build up. Like I will get so physically dependent to opiates so fast. Like within 2 or 3 days now, it just my body's like, oh yeah, here we go. Now you're dope sick. Awesome. So
you take a quarter of a naltrexone piece. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, I feel a little lightheaded. And then I was like, oh, and then the first thing was like, I evacuated my bowels. And then it felt like a dagger being twisted in my intestines and cramps. And I was like yawning and muscle spasming so hard. I thought I was going to like dislocate my jaw. And I was like, okay, just go lay down and like breathe this out. Like you have training, you can do this. And I laid down, and the sense of impending doom was like, oh fuck. And it just kept ramping up and up and up. And I was like, oh no. And so I just like ran out of the house. And on the way out of the house, I was just like, I got to go to the emergency room. Like, that's what I told my partner. Like, so she didn't know. In her view, I just ran to the hospital or the emergency room. And I somehow drove myself there, and I get to the parking garage, and I don't even really know. Like, I couldn't figure anything out. And this cop was like, do you need help, sir? And I was like, yes, I need help. And so this cop helped drag me to the emergency room desk. And I get so fucking frustrated. I was like, I'm telling you exactly what is wrong with me. And they're like, oh, we're still going to run some tests. I was like, I took an opioid antagonist, and I'm high on opioids, or I still had opioids in my system. Like, help. And I don't really remember. This is where like things really start to get hazy. And
by the way, none of this is funny. I don't mean to be laughing.
It's pretty. Yeah,
I'm laughing because I'm so sad for you. Because like the precipitated withdrawal nightmare that opiate addicts go through is so awful. I took a Suboxone early once, and I'll never forget like the tunnel vision, and you can't even explain how bad it is. And then also trying to explain that to a civilian nurse. Like, when you know exactly what you need, but like, you're just a drug addict, so why the fuck would they listen to you? You know what I mean? So so you're trying to explain to them what's going on.
Yeah.
And your next memory
I know exactly. Waking up in the psych ward on like a concrete slab with like an IV in. And I was like, I still felt like, but I was at least a little. And dude, I looked at my phone, then I had like 20 missed calls, and I realized it's like 3 hours later. Then they're like, hey, your uncle's here to visit you. And I was like, my uncle? I was like, oh, okay, sure. And it was my sponsor, and he came in, and dude, I just cried. I just cried. And he had told my partner, and it was just fucking terrible.
I can't believe they put you on benzos, right? That was what the IV was?
Yeah,
I can't believe they even gave you benzos.
They just sedated me.
I'm surprised they didn't just treat you like complete shit.
That's the treatment. No, that's the treatment.
They have to do something.
Like, I thought I had prepped for this, but I didn't. So yeah, that was
that this happened.
Oh, that was what it was. That's what made me go to the hospital, because I was like, how long can this last? And I looked at, and someone was like, yeah, the worst of it was over in like 21 hours. And I was like, oh fuck. Yeah. But then, dude, then I did it. Then I used again, then I used Kratom again.
So you get out of the hospital and go home. And then when do you use again?
Oh man, maybe the next day, because the way the addict mind works is like, well, shit, dude, you just kind of had a little tolerance reset, didn't you? And I think I still didn't have a date for the shot. I think that's part of the problem. And so then I think I was only back on it this time for like a week, and I had the shot scheduled. And this is another thing, doctors just don't quite understand. He's like, hey, I can't give you the shot unless you're completely clean. I was like, well, here's the deal, chief. I can't get clean without the shot. So here's what I need. I was like, can you just give me 12 milligrams of Valium, give me the shot, and I'm just going to go home and ride it out. Like, he was like, are you sure? And I was like, I don't have a fucking choice, doctor. Like, you have to do this. And once again, it was like, well, this, I can't be as bad as, because some people said that the shot version isn't as bad. Jeez, dude. And I remember.
And by some people, we mean Reddit and Dopey Nation, right?
Yeah, man.
Not that they're wrong. Reddit, there's a lot of information there.
Oh, yeah.
Because my husband has gone through all these things too, right? The Vivitrol and the Sublocade and all the things. And I'm like, deep on these subreddit threads trying to read for him what I think is going to happen with the Sublocade and what I think is going to happen with the Vivitrol, the same thing. So like, I
drive yourself insane.
Yeah, I've been on all
but
these
yeah, there's some good info. But this time, my partner knew everything, and I was like, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is what I need. Like, we're just going to do this. So we went straight to Walgreens. I was like, I need that fucking prescription. That is the first thing I need. And I remember standing in line, and I was like, here we go. And it started building. It was slower, I think, is what helped. But by the time I got home, I was just like, oh, here we go. And so I took all of the Valium and passed out. And then I guess she had just like gone to the store just for a second or something. But I woke up alone, like kind of the lights were off. And now I'm in the stage of intense, unrelenting despair and sense of impending doom. And everything is wrong and nothing is going to be all right. And so I called my sponsor, and I was like, I just need you to tell me that like he can have a really extremely calming voice. And I was like, Chris, I need you to just tell me everything's going to be all right. Like, I told most people like what was going to happen, but still people don't really understand what is going to happen.
You don't know.
And I was like, I just need you to tell me that everything's going to be okay. And he's like, Jed, everything's going to be okay, man. And I'm crying. I video call my podcast co-host buddies, and they didn't know at this point. They kind of thought this may have been like, he's like, I thought you were kidding around at first, but I was like, I just need you to stay on the line with me, dude. I'm just sobbing. And it's just indescribably horrible. And then she comes home, and then that I wanted to watch The Prince of Egypt for some reason, the animated movie, and the entire time, dude, I can't make it 3 minutes without just sobbing. I must have been crying about the past fucking 5 years, just like, oh, I'm so sorry, God, and like, just crying. And
was your baby born yet, or was she still pregnant?
Still pregnant.
So she's pregnant dealing with this with you. Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. It's what the fuck. It's big what the fuck.
It happened. Dude, man. My husband, like 6 weeks before we got married, stole my car, took off to Mexico, OD'd while driving my car, crashed it, got a DUI, and we were supposed to get married like 5 weeks later. And he was missing for like 10 hours. And then he called me. He'd gone to jail. In my car, also missing, which had been wrecked while he died at the wheel. I still married that idiot 5 weeks later. So listen, you know what I mean? Like stuff like this happens. So the next day though, right? Like over the next 2 days, you feel way better, right? And when was this? This was in like December of 2023? This was like recently?
This was October, end of October.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks later she was born. And so it was like, it seemed very emblematic and like symbolic of, because it really was almost like a traumatic death experience. And then to 2 weeks later have this unbelievable birth and life experience, and now there's this thing, and it was like, I don't know that there will be a more emotionally intense chunk of time in my life. I fucking hope not. Or I don't know if it's good. If it's good. But it was just, dude, it was a very wild experience, and like the juxtaposition of just like hell to heaven, and just more meat for my story, I suppose, is what someone said. Yeah.
So here we are, August 2024. What are you doing for your program right now?
So we started going to meetings again.
Is she in recovery? The current?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's tough with the kid right now so that's kind of a tough thing, but sticking extremely close to my friends again, the men. There's actually the past 2 weeks have been a little crazy because there's stuff going on with my sponsor that have kind of shaken us all up, but we're all banded together. Weird. I just had deja vu too. What do you think deja vu means? It's still going. Weird.
Really?
Yeah.
So
okay.
What I've heard it is, well, two things. The one thing I've heard, I don't think is what it is. So I've heard you suddenly feel anxious, and so your brain makes you think you've been there before so that you feel calmer. Like, oh, I've been here before, everything is fine.
I've never heard that explanation.
That's what I've heard, but I don't actually think that's true. I think it is more like if we have a parallel universe where this has actually happened before, we're slipping into it for a moment, which I know sounds kind of like woo. But more than that, I think it's a sign, this is the best way to look at it, that you're in the right place.
That's what I think. Okay,
and it's reaffirming you. Because for me, it usually feels like a good thing. Like I'll have
same here.
You know what I mean? I'll have serious deja vu.
It's never felt bad.
Yeah, and it's like not win the lotto, but like I'm about to get the studio
I'm on the
that
path
I owned.
I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. But that anxiety thing makes sense, right? That it's your brain's way of telling you you've been here before, it's fine. But for me,
that is super interesting.
It's interesting, right? But I heard that years ago, like a decade ago. And since then, I've had many, many, many deja vu moments with which to look at that, you know what I mean, that theory, and thought, am I anxious right now? Like testing that theory, and I never am. That's not when it's happening.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I got back into therapy. Yeah, a lot of just like being honest and open with where I'm at. I'm trying to sponsor again. That's another thing. That's why we all decided to go to meetings.
Yeah. So like I wasn't sponsoring for a while by choice because I have my business and I'm not a very good sponsor in my opinion. Like I'm just not. And I really wasn't then. And I would give him a call time or whatever. Like, you got to call me at this time. Otherwise, like, I'm probably not going to be able to answer, whatever. Because I owned a gym during COVID in California, and it was horrible. Like, every day was the worst day of my life. Like, we had people, like, coming to see if we were still operating. People were telling on us. Like, it was, like, communist Russia. It was crazy. God, yes. It was scary every day. And during that time, I told my sponsor, I was like, bro, I'm like a bad sponsor. Like, someone, because what happens is I speak well. So I'll speak at a meeting and people think I'm funny and a good storyteller and whatever. And then afterwards, all these chicks want me to sponsor them. And I'm like, I'm not that great. Like, I know I just told my story really well, but like, I'm super fucking selfish. I really don't like talking on the phone, but I would always do it because you're like supposed to, right? And I told my sponsor, I was like, bro, someone's going to like relapse if I'm their sponsor. I'm not good at it. I'm not like you. And she did tell me, she was like, okay, you can be of service in other ways. And I was like,
do you think that's something you should grow past though?
Yes. Is it? So this is why I think that. So this was years ago. She told me that. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. I could be of service in other ways. Cool. So then I've told other people that. And they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Until I told Dave that afterwards in person. He said something about being a bad sponsor. And I was like, yeah, me too. I don't sponsor anybody. My sponsor said I don't have to. And he said, if someone asks you, you say no. And I felt like such a piece of shit. I was like, yes. And he was like,
yeah,
you should not do that. And I felt so like... I was like, I mean, I know that's right, but no one had ever like said that. And after that, I still didn't do it because I only go to one meeting a week and I just don't raise my hand. So no one has asked. And then over the past few months, I have felt like I'm not spiritually aligned in different ways. And I'm like, I'm not seeing progress I want to see in my life in other ways. And I should be, right? Like, I'm doing the right things and whatever. I think maybe there's a component of service that I'm lacking. And so I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to raise my hand now, whatever. And I just a couple of weeks ago happened to share in a meeting, which I never do. I'm sitting on the left side of the room. And I barely, when they asked you if you could sponsor, I go like this. My left hand. Afterwards, a girl that was way over there on the right side of the room ran right up to me and asked me to sponsor her. And I said yes. And I'm like, I'm like calling her back all the time. And I already went and met with her and, got her the NA books and a notebook and like stuff like that. So I'm trying to do different because I agree with you. I should do that differently probably.
Yeah. Even when I was not doing great, if someone asked, I did. I was...
Okay. I know it's an asshole move that I was making. I get it.
Yeah. Well, that's just one of those things I guess I really took. I feel the burden of responsibility and I take it seriously.
For
sure. Yeah. I guess I just really, really believe in the whole thing of like, if this gets brought to you, then you're supposed to do it.
Absolutely.
And to not do it is a big deal.
Right. So yes, I am.
So you're basically the worst person that's ever lived, is what I'm
absolutely. Dude, that's how I felt. When Dave said it in his face, he was like, wait, you say no? And I was like, oh my God. I wanted to be like, no, I totally don't say no. I just made that up. And I couldn't get that out of my head. And I was like, fucking, he's right, dude. I need to, all right, fine. But I still did it for like 9 months.
Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah.
So you're going to meetings to potentially sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Did you go through your steps again?
I'm back on amends. Oh, yeah. I've been making some more amends that I had not ever made. I thought like some old amends. A bunch of stuff just started coming back up, which is weird, like entire eras of harm that I just forgot. And so I've just been chipping away at those. I mean, I'm not doing it perfectly, but I'm doing it, Yeah, I guess.
And you're on Vivitrol. That's really important.
Yeah, that too. That too.
Similar to Chris and you, my husband's story is similar. He started using really young, going to meetings really young, and is a really gnarly bad addict. Like and I think it really is different if you start so young, like you were talking about, like when your brain is still developing and you're doing opiates at like 14, 15, 16.
Yeah.
It really does kind of change the game. And then you're like an adult man who didn't really have any like regular jobs. And so then you throw the self-esteem piece in there, and then like distrust of 12-step and the program and the belief that it's not going to work for you because you've been fucking up since you were 15. Like I've seen this play out in him. And Vivitrol has been like a lifesaver for him because it has allowed him to see like he can actually get some space from the fucking opiates. Yeah. You know what I mean? Long
Guaranteed.
Enough to say, you know, he'll have a year on Monday. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yes. Like last year at this time, he was missing in Mexico, homeless, no phone.
Wow.
Yeah. No idea where he was. And it's been bad for a really long time. And now he has a year. And I know it's the Vivitrol. And I've asked him this time, I'm like, okay, so I would like you to stay on the Vivitrol for 2 years. Because I still had cravings up through 2 years. That was the last time I really, like, I almost used at the 2-year mark. I almost went to this guy's house that I knew was using instead of seeing a friend of mine lead a meeting. And it was like I was close.
Yeah.
And I just didn't.
Ooh, we have those. Yeah. We have those points.
But after that, I never did again. And that was at about 2 years. And then I read something recently that it's like about, because I had heard like 8 months, 9 months is when like supposedly, well, you know all this shit, right? Supposedly cravings are supposed to go away.
Up to 24. Up to 24.
Okay, well, for me, it was
no, it's 24 months.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's 2 years, really, for your brain to come back to like baseline.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, but also
it's
like
a long time.
Not to go down this road because it's a fucking rabbit hole, but like the issues with the Vivitrol, if the insurance and the doctors with Vivitrol is like a travesty of justice. Like there should never be a gap in that treatment. That's happened to him before. Like I've literally gone storming into his doctor's office, like screaming at them. Like he needs his Vivitrol shot. Like I don't know who the fuck didn't order it on time. Just like the terror of that and the frustration with the Vivitrol and insurance and how expensive it is. It's just a nightmare, and that causes. But my whole point is, I think you also should stay on Vivitrol for a few years if you want.
Yeah, that's the plan for now. So,
okay.
Yep.
Well, how do you feel like in your life right now, mentally, emotionally?
Good. I mean, I feel really blessed with my daughter and my fiance, and I mean, really, like, life is good. Like, it's the only issues I have are areas in my life in which I used to not have areas. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh my God, I'm fucking stressed in college, like that I get to go to college that the state pays for. And like,
totally. That's a good way to put it. I think about that with gas sometimes because I'll be like, gas is so expensive. And I'm like, oh my God, I have a car. I didn't have a car once for like 5 years, you know?
Oh, dude. Yeah. It's like, do I put gas in or dope money? I remember we ran out of gas halfway to the dope man's house. And so we walked the rest of the way and then we came back and like called AAA and all that. No, like, it's like, of course. Well, fucking leave it. Dude. We'll go on foot, dude. Just abandon the car.
I escaped from a detox once with this guy. And we were asking for money in the parking lot of a convenience store. And we were getting money. And like he went in and bought a 40 with $3 precious dollars. And I was like, we need dope. I was so mad. I was like, I can't believe you spent that shit on alcohol. Like I would even wait on cigarettes. Like we need rigs and we need fucking dope. Like I'm mad right now. Yeah. It was like 10
go get a
years
refund.
Yeah, I'm like getting mad right now. But yeah, I for sure would have left the car out of gas because then you can get well and figure it out. You know, like,
and then it doesn't matter. Who
that
cares?
was always my thing too. Like I remember I got kicked out of one program and I called a friend of mine from rehab and he had just started using too. And we like went to a Motel 6 and he was like, I don't love that you're using or whatever. And I was like, no, I know. But listen, I just need to get right. And then I'm going to figure out where I'm going because I'm going to go to a sober living, but I just need to get right first. And then I'm going to go to a sober living. I promise. I meant it.
Yeah.
I just needed a speedball. I needed a speedball and then I could figure it out, you know?
Yeah, I do. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild. And so, yeah, like things are good. Of course, you know, life's tough. there's stress, but it's good. I really can't complain. I would just be complaining if I had to complain.
Right. Well, and like you said earlier too, I think like the constant big zoom out lesson for everyone, not just addicts, is like, how do we get to a place where it's not about the destination, it's about the journey? I think that's like the lesson in life, that's the key. And I'm really, really, really bad at that. I just heard this the other day. This is so cool. Like, you've probably heard the idea of like attention and intention. If you put attention and intention towards some sort of goal, like, it tends to work out. But I heard a third thing added to that recently, which was attention and intention, and then no tension, meaning we're not trying to control the outcomes. And that's like the third key. That's like the last.
Ooh, I like that. Keys. I haven't heard that.
Me too. And I can't do it though. I don't know how to do that. No, that's the part I can't do. You know? And I feel like that's like
hard.
The thing we're all supposed to be learning.
Yeah, I would like to tackle how much I'm on my phone, and like,
me too.
If that's so the biggest problem in my life right now, then like, okay, you know, that's whatever. It's not whatever, but yeah.
So tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's Church and Other Drugs, Church & Other Drugs. I think if you type in "and," you'll find it too, wherever you get podcasts. And then I do art also, and I usually sell it through my Instagram, jed.i.am. Yeah, that's my diaper money side hustle right now. So feel free to pick something up.
Your stuff's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's very cool. Well, thank you again for spending we went an hour and 40. I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to be really fast, 45 minutes. Nope.
Yeah, right.
We're like waiting to watch Bill Maher. Well, he's probably upstairs like, where the fuck is she? So anyways.
Well, that's same.
To go watch Bill Maher? Same thing?
No, no. Okay. We're going to watch Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
The Amazon one.
I don't even want to go down this road, but we're also both Game of Thrones fans and House of the Dragon fans. And so, like, I was like, well, I can't even bring that up now because that's a whole fucking thing. Because I actually think season 2 ended okay. I'm the only person that thinks that. I think it was okay.
We can have that talk.
All right.
Have that talk.
I really think it set up an exciting end. But whatever. We can talk about it later. Let's schedule me for yours.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, text me and then we'll figure something out.
Sounds good.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.